Started.
Hello everyone, my name is Ambrose and I am joined by my two teammates Daiho and Jinghong. Welcome to our presentation of Group 25 for the module 7030 SSL International Leadership. In this presentation, I will cover the overview of our chosen leaders, their background and theoretical framework, such as application of transformational, charismatic and ethical leadership on our first leader. Then my teammate Jing Hong will critically discuss his style, strengths and weaknesses, with the analysis of theories applied to him, following up by introducing us to our second leader and application of theoretical frameworks. From there, Dai Hao will continue the presentation by critically discussing these frameworks, strengths, weaknesses, and end the presentation by giving us a comparative summary of both leaders and recommendation for each. Now, an analytical leadership report, a tale of two leaders. Today, we will be giving a competitive analysis of Justin Trudeau and Mary T. Barra. First, let's look at our overview of this presentation. Our main focus is to examine leadership style of Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, and Mary T. Barra, the CEO of General Motors. Our objective is to use leadership theories to critically evaluate how these models explain the approach of each leader. For Trudeau, we will look at transformational, charismatic, and ethical leadership models. For Barra, we will look at transformational, ethical, leader-member exchange, and servant leadership models. Our analysis is guided by key concepts like model of transformational leadership, which is about raising the morality of motivation of leaders and followers. So let's begin with our first leader, Justin Trudeau. Who is this leader? Justin Trudeau is the Prime Minister of Canada. At his time in the office began at 2015. His government philosophy is famously known as Sunny Ways, which represent hope, change, and include progress. As a quick note, our lead report focuses on his actions as Prime Minister, but his background also include work as a teacher before he entered the politics. Now, let's talk about his leadership style. Trudeau's style aligned very closely with transformational leadership, which aims to enhance the moral and motivation of everyone. He has consistently presented a vision of uniting and progressive Canada. A good example of his career focuses on collective identity. In his first speech to the UN, he said, "We cannot build a better world unless we work together." This shows his focus on collective goals over personal interests. His leadership is seen as more transformational than transactional. This means this instead of giving and take model Trudeau motivate people through shared value and common vision. Transformational leadership has four key parts. We can see them all in Trudeau's leadership. First, idealized influence. In 2015, he approached a young, diverse, and gender balanced cabinet. This shows his fairness and inclusion were important of his government. Second, inspirational motivation. During the COVID-19 pandemic, he gave brief really asking Canadians to compensate and work together, which is a key in his crisis. Third, individualized consideration. He held dialogues with indigenous communities. He once said, "We walk forward on the path of real reconciliation." It's an opportunity to sit down and hear from you, showing the listeners to their concerns. And fourth, intellectual simulation. His government make promises changing like legalizing cannabis and introducing carbon pricing, which shows the new ideas were welcome. Trudeau charismatic leadership and ethical leadership in practice. Now let's look at his charismatic and ethical leadership. Trudeau has a very charismatic style. A physiological profile found that his personality is predictive of charismatic leadership style. He used his personal charm to connect with people, for example, by taking selfies with voters and making numerous media appearances. And from an ethical point of view, his policies often align with guiding people with ethical standards and concern for public. For example, he once admitted 25,000 Syrian refugees and launched investigations into missing indigenous women. Finally, we'll see a clear connectivity of theories. Turo's personal charisma was the main way he communicated with his transformational vision and his ethical stance, which focused on diversifying and reconciling was the moral heart of that vision. Now, I will pass it over to my teammate Jing Hong, who will continue with the critical discussion of Trudeau leadership.
Yes, thank you, Ambrose. Now I will discuss the critical of Justin Trudeau leadership. First, let's look at what he has done well. His policies did lead to strong internal economy growth and better welfare for children. Also, his successful election campaign, based on change and strong leadership, created what was called Trudeau mania on the global stage. But let's talk about some of the ways he hasn't done so well. One big problem is that his leadership style often focuses more on looking good and making a show with big gestures instead of making real change. For examples, in the 2019 SNC Lavalin scandal, Canada's ISIS commission said he broken the rules by trying to put pressure on the government's top lawyer to help a company avoid the trouble. This really hurt how people saw him when it comes to honest and doing the right things. There was also another ISIS problem back in 2017, which makes it clear that sometimes he didn't follow his own advice or live up to the standards he talked about. All of this made people wonder if he was really doing what he said leaders should do. Now let's go to next. Yes, this brings us to an important point about the leadership theories themselves. First, let's look at the limits of transformational leadership. People often point out that while this approach can be really inspiring, it doesn't always lead to actual change. For example, Trudeau made big promises about the climate and improving indigenous relations, but things moved very slowly, which ended up disappointing his supporters. So having a broad vision is great, but if you can't deliver, people started to get foreign start or even lost trust. Second, let's talk about the risks of pragmatic and ethic leadership. Trudeau's case shows that a leader's ethical image can be very fragile if your actions go against the values you claim to stand for, like what happened with the SNC Lavalin scandal. It can quickly and seriously damage your credibilities. Now, let's talk about our second leader, Mary Bala. So, who is she? Mary Barra is the first woman to become CEO of General Motors, and she's been in that role since 2014. People often describe her leadership style as transformational, adaptive, and inclusive, just like with Trudeau. We are focusing on her time as CEO, but it's wrong but it was nothing that she's had a long career at GM, with a lot of experiences in engineering and leading global product development. Barry's leadership is a great example of transformational change, especially in a Christ. After GM went through the huge ignitions which recall scandal, she turned that crisis into an opportunity to totally reshape the company's culture. She came up with a new strategy that focused on safety, quality, and pushing for electric vehicles in the future. One of her well-known moves was empowering employees. Instead of the older 10-page dress code, she cut it down to just two words: dress appropriately. That simple change really showed that she trusted her team and wanted to move the culture from being all about the rules to being about empowerment. She also gave everyone at GM a higher purpose with the idea of winning customers one at a time. That way, every employee felt connected to the mission of earning customer trust. Let's go to next point. Yep. Barra also put a lot of effort into making GM a more inclusive and ethical company. When it comes to inclusive leadership, she loved regular town hall meetings so employees at all levels could share their ideas and consult directly with senior management. This open communication really helped improve morale and build trust across the organization because people felt heard and valued. And these efforts didn't go unnoticed. GM was ranked number one in a global workplace gender equality report in 2018, which was a big achievement. On the ethical leadership side, the way Barry handled the recall scandal is often seen as a model for others. She didn't try to hide from the problem. Instead, she apologized publicly to the victim, set up a compensation fund for those affected, and took real action by firing more than 10 employees who were responsible. She famously said, I never want to put this behind us. I want to put these painful experiences permanently in our collective memories. That attitude really shows she was committed to learning from past mistakes and making sure the company changed for the better. Well, that I will now hand it over to Yihao Dai to finish our presentations.
Thank you, Jinhong. I will continue with how Barra built trust. She created psychological safety by launching the Speak Up for Safety program. This encouraged any employees to report safety concerns without being afraid. This connects to leader member exchange, or LMX theory. Her actions reflect LMX principles because she tried to build high quality, trust based relationships with all employees, not just the top exclusives. She wanted to make every employee feel like part of the in group. We also see servant leadership tendencies. This style is about putting the need of your followers first. Bara showed this when she said we have 200,000 employees. They all wanted to do the right thing. Just make sure they know you want them to do the right thing. And here we see the connectivity of series. Bara's ethical leadership during the crisis was the foundation for her transformational culture exchange. She then used ideas from inclusive and LMX theory to empower her employees and build trust. Now, for a critical discussion of Mary Barra's leadership. First, what she was done well. Her leadership was the main reason GM turned its losses into profits. Also, as a female CEO in an industry dominated by men, her success challenges old stereotypes and shows that leadership quality is often called feminine, like being a good listener, are actually strengths. Now, for where she has fallen short, there is some investor skepticism. GM's share price has been somewhat lackluster, which suggests investors are not fully convinced that the change will last. Also, her image as an employee-focused leader was questioned when she led layoffs and closed factories between 2018 and 2019 to restructure the company. Let's look critically at the series that apply to her. First, the challenges of transformational leadership. The layoffs show that transformational leaders often face a difficult balance between making big changes and the pain it can cause for stakeholders. Next, the news of ethical leadership. The restriction shows that being an ethical leader doesn't mean you can avoid all negative outcomes. Uh, Instead, it means you have to manage those difficult situations with fairness and transparency. Finally, gender and leadership. Barra's inclusive and collaborative styles suggests research that suggests women leaders often use these effective approaches. So, to conclude, the table provides a clear comparison of our two leaders. For Justin Trudeau, we see his leadership is based on a transformational vision, personal charisma, and farming policies around the ethics. For Mary T. Barra, we see her leadership was about using a crisis to reshape culture, showing moral courage and building trust through inclusive practices. Finally, based on our analysis, we have some practical recommendations for Justin Trudeau to address the ethical issues from the SNC Lavalin scandal. He could champion leg, 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 legislation
Research,
to
yes.
create create an independent third-party ethics commission. This would help restore trust by making sure uh, accountability is processed by politics. For Mary T. Barrett, to better balance big changes with the pain felt by employees, like with the layoffs, she could co-develop future plans with employee representatives. This would increase transparency and allow for the exploring or alternatives like retraining programs before closing factories. This concludes our presentation, and here are our references.
Yes.
And thank you for your attention.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
listening. Thank you. Okay, stop.
Stop recording.